Rosie Jones, welcome to VUFOA-TV.
Thank you.
It's absolutely wonderful to have you here. Now, Rosie is the writer, director and editor of Westall 66, A Suburban Mystery, a great documentary that was made several years ago now. And I just want to point out to everybody that Rosie is in fact not a UFO researcher, not a ufologist or a UFO hunter. She's in fact a filmmaker.
That's right.
And she's done such a great job with what is one of Australia's most iconic and relatively unknown UFO events. And I just would like to start off by talking about what got you into filmmaking in the first place. Where did you actually do your training? And what films did you do leading up to the Westall 66 event? And how did it fit in as a result of the previous movies you'd made?
Okay, that's a lot of questions.
It is a lot of questions.
Well, I started filmmaking by writing. So I was a journalist years ago, and I got interested in script writing. I did a script writing course and then thought, okay, if I'm going to have any control over what I write, and I did the script writing course as part of filmmaking.
Yep.
I thought I need to learn more about filmmaking. So I went to what is now VCA, but was then Swinburne Film School.
Yes.
And did a postgrad course down there. And then I started doing a lot of editing.
Okay.
And editing and still writing, trying to get projects up.
Yeah.
The first film I made as a director was in a way a little bit similar to Westall, and I seem to be kind of sort of repeating the same sorts of films in that it was about, it was called Visions of Yankalilla, and it was set in South Australia, and it was about a apparition of the Virgin Mary that appeared on the wall of a little church down there, a little Anglican church. And half the community thought it was fantastic and half the community thought it was rubbish.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of really about issues of faith and belief and, you know, whether there really was any truth in it or not, and about the sort of the community stoush that happened after that. So in a sense it was about, did they really see something? Which is, you know, the same question in Westall in a way.
It
Not
is.
did they really see something, but well, I guess it depends on your perspective when you watch it, but it is about was this a real thing?
Yes.
And why was it squashed? So there's kind of a similarity, I guess, in that. And then I seem to make films about sort of faith and belief, not that I'm religious either.
No, no.
But I'm interested in what sort of motivates people, I guess.
Well,
Those passions.
Yeah, very much so. And the opening sequence of Westall 66 with the baby laying on the blanket and the UFO mobile that's hanging over it, really much, I think, from a visual point of view, picks up very much on the central theme of the Westall thing, which is basically innocence and mystery. So you've got the young children who have gone through the experience and something that's appeared out of the sky, and I thought that was a really beautiful way to start the documentary. So that was really good. So leading into that, what led you to actually being involved in the Westall project?
I saw a story in The Age which was about Shane Ryan, who is the central person leading us through the investigation. And he had already started investigating this story, so something about it just hooked me in, and I guess it's that interest in the sort of the faith and belief and did they see something, and it just sounded like a great story.
Yes.
And so I went to Canberra and met Shane, and he was terrific and he was doing great research, and you know, he seemed like a really good person to have as a central character, and he was, you know, very happy to be involved and excited, and you know, so it seemed like a good mix.
Good mix,
yes,
yeah. And the themes were sort of very much similar to what you'd done previously.
I'm interested in that, and I keep doing similar stuff.
Similar stuff now. So
in a different versions of that kind of
that type
question.
Which is really good. So I just would like to talk to you about the research side of the project, because that must have been an enormous part of the work. And I think in the film there's up to nearly 40 contributors that are actually filmed in that.
I haven't counted them.
Well, I did. So
good on you.
I had a look through the credits, and I was very interested because it would have been such a process to make the contact with them all. And how did they react to you approaching them?
Well, quite often I would approach people through Shane, because Shane had set up a Yahoo group page for people to contribute. So he already had quite a lot of people that he was talking to, and he would sort of smooth the way for me, which was great. It was really fantastic.
Yes.
Other people, I rang them up. I found them myself, because there's so much. It's such a huge research project. Shane was doing it part-time. I mean, he had just recently at that stage had his first child.
Yes.
He had a full-time job, a wife, you know. It's really hard to fit in enough research to kind of to make a film from.
Yeah.
And I think Shane was probably is and still is probably more interested in finding as many of the people who actual witnesses, whereas I was also trying to find, well, I needed to find to satisfy the people who were funding or I hoped were funding the production. I had to find more answers more quickly than is possible when you're doing it on a part-time basis. I mean, he was doing fantastic research.
Yes, yeah.
But I had this, you know, imperative to try and get it. You know, I couldn't wait 5 years. So I kind of waded into some of the research myself in different areas to Shane.
Yeah.
Just to try and, you know, help, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's huge, absolutely enormous.
Yeah, the scope of it would have been incredible.
And you don't sort of realise until you start, and the difficulty of actually going into archives and dealing with the Privacy Act, and you can't get access to the things you want to get access to. So it takes so long.
So Shane was perhaps Shane dealing more with the witness side of things, and you were dealing more on the research through the archives and things. Is that how?
Shane was doing that as well.
He was doing that
but
as well,
I guess I started ringing people at Moorabbin Airport and sort of going, because Shane's in Canberra and I'm in Melbourne. It was easier for me to do sort of stuff with people locally, I guess.
Yes.
Because his is all through the phone.
Yes.
Which makes it more difficult.
Yes.
So there was stuff that I could do that maybe Shane couldn't do.
Yes.
And I was really, because you can't have 100 witnesses with slightly different variations of the same story in a film. So I was trying to find different sorts of witnesses and different kinds of information to, like the military expert and people like that, to try and, to try and come up with an answer. That's what we were all trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that worked beautifully in the finished production, because you covered a lot of those different angles. Tried to as much as you could. Now, over what period of time was that research conducted before you got to the point where you started getting into actually doing the filming? Oh,
we started pretty much straight away.
You did,
yeah. Because there were people like Paul Norman, who was in his 90s already. There were people, passing away.
Yeah.
We'd already missed some people, so I couldn't really wait to start the filming. We started the filming, and then realised, how difficult it would be. So the research probably took, 3 or 4 years.
3 to 4 years.
Yeah. So I can't even remember now, but I think we started in 2006. I went to that reunion that Shane had organised.
Yep.
At the Westall, whatever club it was, sports club.
Yeah.
And then from that time, I was researching alongside Shane, really, and it was 4 years before it came out. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a long time, really.
It is. Yeah. A lot of people wouldn't realise that how much work actually goes into
and how
constructing a film and the magnitude of that's involved. Now, just talking about your production team, how did you go about selecting the people to help you craft the final process? So what qualities were you looking for in them, and how did you go about making those choices?
I'd worked with Peter Zakharov, who was a cinematographer, and Mark Tarpey before, so
that was easy.
That was easy, yeah. Carmel McAloon I had worked with before as well. She was the producer. And we'd worked on a shorter film together, and I thought she was great. Lee Whitmore, I had seen her, who was the animator. I'd seen a film that she'd done called The Safe House, which was about the Petrov affair.
Yep.
And it had some great stuff in it, and I just thought, that's an interesting style, maybe we can do that. Because we'd originally thought that we might do some reenactments, but we didn't have a big budget, and reenactments are so expensive, and it's very easy to do them really badly.
They can be cheesy.
They can be awful, and I hadn't had experience directing that kind of stuff. We didn't have the money to go and do it. It would have had to be very tight sort of stuff. And I just thought, that sounds too difficult. Let's try this animation thing.
I think
so she was great. Yeah, she got really involved, and she did a lot more work than she should have, because she really liked the story.
Yeah, well, I think the animation kind of brought almost a storybook quality to it.
Yes.
Was that something that was that a conscious choice?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And Shane talked about this as being sort of like his favourite story.
Yes.
I think it's in the film.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and it is a sort of once upon a time story. Not that I'm saying it's not real, but that it has that kind of element to it. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a very sort of surreal story.
Yeah,
that at 11 o'clock on a midweek day in broad daylight, these objects appear out of nowhere. It is very much like that.
It is strange. Yeah.
So so you knew you had a great project with.
Well, I hoped we did. Had good collaborators.
Yeah,
so, you know.
You had good collaborators.
Yeah, it's a great story.
And it was a great story. So as far as funding the project goes, did you find that there was issues involved with that at all, or was it so there were definitely issues in getting people to fund it?
The issue in getting people to fund it was that we didn't have an answer, and television broadcasters want an answer. They want to know before they commit to something that somebody's going to solve something.
Yes.
And we didn't have that.
No. Really,
all we had was Shane had already turned up lots of great people, fantastic witnesses, and done a lot of research, but we still don't have the answer. So in terms of getting funding from people, it was really difficult. Screen Australia came on board because they liked the story, and the fund that we were funded through, you don't have to have a broadcaster on board.
Oh, okay.
But the broadcasters, we were lucky to get Sci-Fi Channel were great, but they came on relatively late, and it was more of an acquisition than, not as much money essentially as it would have been from, say, the ABC, who we spent a lot of time talking to, and they were very interested, but they wanted an answer, and we couldn't give them one. So
which is
unfortunately, it's a bit silly, but
it
is
the
way they work.
It is the way they work, and
they don't want to have an hour and then an hour of television at the end of which people are disappointed. That's not disappointed, but not, there's not an answer. So
no, but I think the way that it was presented, it really did show that these people have had suppressed this story for all these years, and the telling of that was very compelling. These people are so happy to be able to come forward and talk about it, and for me, I think that was one of the really great parts of the production, and as a viewer, that was really quite good. Yeah,
and I think that's important to the witnesses, and also incredibly important to Shane, and that's what he's doing, is giving people a voice. A voice. Something that's been suppressed.
Which has been suppressed. Yeah. So how long did the filming take? We
filmed over. Various weekends, because Shane was really mostly available on a weekend. Yeah. Because he had a full-time job.
Yes.
So mostly, over weekends over that period, really. I mean, we started at the reunion, the first reunion in 2006, and then it took a little while before we filmed again. Yeah. But I sporadically over that period, really, right up till the end almost. Yeah. Yeah. Ever hoping that we would have an answer. Yeah. Which we're still hoping.
You're still hoping for. Yeah. And I'd like to ask you about your impression of Westall and the Grange, the physical location that your story takes place in.
Yeah, it's a great place.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
It's so eerie, and those huge trees, it's a bit creepy. I love all the tips and dumps, and I really like all of that.
It's surrounded.
It's such a weird spot.
It is.
And even now, there's still areas that are market gardens and sort of broken down greenhouses, and it's still in a process of transformation. It's I think it's a really interesting area. I loved it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I know the first time I went there, I was
weird.
It's a weird place.
It is weird.
And I encourage anyone who's never been to Westall to absolutely take the trip out there, because it's a wonderful place, and they're now building a park as well.
Yes, which
but
is great.
It's just fantastic.
Good on Shane.
Yeah, good on Shane. He's really pushing it in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I think that's adds another dimension to the area as well.
It does.
And I think with the documentary plus the park, the area is going to boom. I think whether
Well,
it's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I hope people do go down there and use this park. I think it's very funny.
Yes.
It's quite strange, but also great.
It is.
And really, I think a lot of the witnesses, I think they will find it. What's the word? I can't think of the word, but it's very
cathartic or something, because it'll give them some sort of sense of
they've been believed.
They've been believed.
They've been listened to.
Yeah, and to have the City of Kingston actually acknowledge the event is effectively what they've done.
Yeah, that's right.
Through
acknowledgement. That's the word.
Through the construction. So.
We still don't know what it was, but we know it was something. It's not a figment of the imagination. Something happened. Something happened
there that day. Now, I'd like to talk to you about the reaction to the documentary. So once it was actually produced and finally screened, it's sort of a three-part question. Is how did the witnesses react to it? How did the public react to it? And did you get any feedback from the authorities, so to speak, on the reaction?
The first two all reacted well, as far as I know.
Yes.
There's variations of well.
Yeah.
Nobody felt they had been misrepresented or anything.
Yeah.
Or nobody told me that. They may have, but they haven't told me. But as far as I know, the witnesses were happy with it.
Yeah.
What was the second one?
The
public. Yeah, no, the public response was really good.
Yeah.
Authorities, nothing, zero.
Nothing.
No response from the authorities. Unfortunately, it has brought out little bits and pieces of people. Lots of people have responded to the Shane's websites and the Facebook page and all of that. The public and witness response was great, but it still hasn't brought out what we really want.
What we wanted to get.
Yeah, no. So we haven't had a phone call from the policeman who was there and could tell us what it was all about, or we haven't had that. So unfortunately.
Yeah.
You keep hoping.
You keep hoping, absolutely. So the journey from when you first got involved through to the production, to the end, it's been several years after. Did it meet what you expected it to do in terms of your own expectations for the project? And did you think that had you changed as a part of the process of doing through that whole journey?
Right. To answer the last bit first, I certainly learnt a hell of a lot about research.
Yes.
And that was fantastic. I hadn't really had to delve into the National Archives or Public Records Office of Victoria, and that was a whole journey. I feel as though my research skills have sharpened incredibly. Yes. And that's been great. I've actually really loved the research part of the process. I just adore getting into the archives and sort of burrowing into them, trying to find something, even though it's incredibly frustrating.
Yes.
So that's been great, and it was great meeting all the witnesses, and I'm happy with the film. I did actually want to make a feature-length version, but we had the funding to make the television hour. I'm still really keen to add to it, but we need to find really great extra information. So I'm still really keen, and if anybody knows of anybody who just hasn't happened to tell us the information we need, that'd be great.
Please come forth, because Rosie would like to hear from you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's definitely.
Is that what else haven't I answered? You asked something else.
I think it's pretty.
So much as one thing that was quite shocking to me was the way in which the film's been ripped off. Within an hour of its screening on television, it was copied and put up on the internet, illegally, which is soul destroying, because we did so much work for no money really.
No.
It cost me an enormous amount of money to actually do all that research for those years.
Yes.
And you hope that you might make a little bit of money out of the sales of DVDs and things like that might then go into more research. And of course, once it's up on the internet, that's it, really, in that respect. But the good thing about that is that there's 300,000 odd people or more have been interested enough to watch it on the internet, which is fabulous. You know, I really like that. There's some interesting comments come back and some awful ones.
Really?
Not about, just rude.
Oh, I find that surprising.
Oh, wow. It's fascinating, the public response and what people think is okay and not okay to put up on the internet.
On the internet, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's a critic.
They are.
Yeah. You know, why didn't they go and research something or other, as if we didn't try? You know.
That's
anyway. But it's great to see that people want to watch the film and that there is an audience for a film like this.
Yes.
I think it's great that it's out there, and you keep hoping that from those responses that more information will come forward. And you know, it is little bits and pieces. There's more witnesses have come forward, more people feel comfortable talking about it, and it all adds, I think, to things like getting the park up. And, you know, the more public it is, the more people feel comfortable about talking about it. And I think it's great that so many people can be bothered to watch it. I think that's terrific.
That is
there
awesome.
is an audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
People want to know these stories.
They
want to know the answers.
They do.
We all do.
Was in the production, was there anything that you had to leave out that you wished you could have put in? Or
heaps. There was.
Stuff, okay. So
was
that just other interviews from other witnesses who were sort of saying similar things? And
some of that, yes.
The pacing reasons you can't include them.
And we had 49 minutes, and you know they're very strict about that. So you can't. We couldn't have all the witnesses that we spoke to. I'd done a lot more research into the science side, the CSIRO and things like that were in the background, but we just couldn't fit it into the narrative. And we tried to, you know, if you had too many slightly differing points of view, it looks like there is no story. And so we, you know, of course we've been selective.
You've been very selective.
Yeah, we've had to. You want to tell a story. You want to keep people listening, and so you do select. We had to.
You had to do that. Yeah, most certainly.
Yeah.
And as a leading on from the Westall project, what productions have you worked on since that time? And are you still exploring the same or similar themes
I am.
leading
I actually
through?
am. It's quite bizarre.
Yeah. And through
Mm.
this project, you know, obviously you've done directing, you've done editing and writing, and you've now had a great love for research. What do you think your future projects which direction will you go in the future?
They're all involving the same stuff.
They are?
Yeah. It's another kind of similar story that I'm researching at the moment. In fact, the contact was made, the idea first came into my head while I was doing the research on Westall.
Excellent.
Yeah, so it's somebody involved in the Westall story was involved in the story that I'm now researching.
That you're now researching?
Yeah.
Okay, marvellous. Okay, well Rosie, I'd like to thank you for your time today.
Pleasure.
It's been very enlightening, and we wish you all the best for your future.
Thank you.